If what this book says about our modern society is true, then we all are cooked. This is not about how our generation is worse than previous. It's not about how our world is dying. It's not about apocalypse, but it's about how we can stop destroying what's good about our society, our culture, entire base of this society, do things in a better way, hopefully. The base of our civilization, like the very, very base of it, is now being replaced by something much, much worse, and this is happening for last 4 or 5 decades. But is it true? This is the first book that I actually want to record a video on in the progress of reading it. I would try not to interrupt the author, and then I will also have a bit of my comments, because there are things to comment on, there are fresh and refreshing thoughts. Keep some of the old practices, invent some new practices, and combine them, merge them with all of the electric digital technology that we have now. I believe that this time, this day and age we live in is very important for us, because it's the time where we can find this balance between all the digital technologies that we invented over the last decades and all the physical technologies that we have been inventing for hundreds and thousands of years. That is what I'm working on, both in my social projects, both in my art project that you also see here. This book here shares some of the ideas that are very useful and very eye-opening. So let's begin. Sven Birkert's The Gutenberg Elegies, The Fate of Reading in an Electronic Age. It happened that while I was in this season of thinking about time and the life of the past, I rented a video of a film called Fools of Fortune, based on a novel by William Trevor. It was a desperate grab, really, a bit to cancel the residue of an enervating day. But as soon as I popped the cassette into the player, I felt my obsessions. The opening moments of the film reproduced what we meant to be bits of old 8mm footage. A child toddling forward across a grand lawn, a manor house in the background, a woman in a garden chair with period clothing and hairstyle. All cinematic artifice, of course, but I was entirely susceptible to it. The film depicted Ireland in the early years of our century, during the time of the Civil War. I was most struck by what seemed its real sensitivity to the conditions of the provincial life it recorded. Days pass at a pace we can hardly imagine. A letter arrives, and it is an event. The sound of paper unfolding, of wind in the trees outside the door, and then the things, their thingness. Jude's little hoard of Greek and Latin grammars, the smudgy books he had scrimped to buy, the books he carried with him until his dying day. His stoneworking tools, well cared for, much prized. I suddenly think of lines from Elizabeth Bishop's poem, Crusoe in England. The castaway has returned home after years, lonely years of the island. Now I live here, another island that doesn't seem like one, but who decides? My blood was full of them, my brain grew islands, but that archipelago has petered out. I'm old, I'm bored too, drinking my real tea, surrounded by uninteresting lumber. The knife there on the shelf, it's reeked of meaning, like a crucifix. It lived. How many years did I beg it, implore it, not to break? I knew each nick and scratch by heart, the bluish blade, the broken tip, the lines of wood grain on the handle. Now it won't look at me at all. The living soul has dribbled away. My eyes rest on it and pass on. But this is it, no? The densities of meaning once conferred, since leached out. Our passage into bright contemporary has carried a price. The more complex and sophisticated our system of lateral access, the more we sacrifice in the way of depth. Read Jude of the Obscure, and you will be struck, I think, by the material particularity of Hardy's world. You will feel the heft of things, the solidity. You will also feel the stasis, the near intolerable boredom of boundedness. We can think of the matter in terms of gains and losses. The gains of electronic postmodernity could be said to include for individuals an increased awareness of the big picture, a global perspective that admits the extraordinary complexity of interrelations, an expanded neural capacity, an ability to accommodate a broad range of stimuli simultaneously, a realistic comprehension of situations that promotes the erosion of old biases and often exposes itself as tolerance, and a matter-of-fact and unencumbered sort of readiness, a willingness to try new situations and arrangements. In the last column, meanwhile, are a fragmented sense of time and loss of so-called duration experience, that depth phenomenon we associate with reverie. B. A reduced attention span and a general impatience with sustained inquiry. C. A shattered faith in institutions and in the explanatory narratives that formerly gave shape to subjective experience. D. A divorce from the past, from a vital sense of history as a cumulative or organic process. E. An estrangement from geographic place and community. And F. An absence of any strong vision of a personal or collective future. I worry not only that the world will become increasingly alien and inhospitable to me, but also that I will be gradually cursed into living against my natural grain, forced to adapt to a pace and a level of technological complexity that doesn't suit me, and driven to interact with others in certain prescribed ways. I tried to live without a telephone answering machine for a time and was made to feel like a pariah. I typed those words on IBM's Electric and feel positively antediluvian. My editors let me know that my quiet Luddite habits are gumming up the work, slowing things down for them. These are trivial examples, but they are indicative. On one level or another, we make our adjustments, we shrug and bow to progress. But the fact is that with each capitulation, we are drawn more deeply into the web. True, none of the isolated changes make that much difference, but the increasing enmeshment does. The more deeply we are implicated, the more we forfeit in the way of personal initiative and agency, the more we become part of species organism. Every acquiescence to the circuitry is marked by shrinkage of the sphere of autonomous selfhood. Every acquiescence to the circuitry is marked by a shrinkage of the sphere of autonomous selfhood. As a writer, I naturally feel uneasy. These large-scale changes bode ill for authorship, at least of a kind I would pursue. There are, we know this, fewer and fewer readers for serious works. Publishers are increasingly reluctant to underwrite the publication of a work or of a book that will sell only a few thousand copies, but very few works of any artistic importance sell more than that. And those few thousand readers, a great many of them, it turns out, are middle-aged or older. The younger generations have not caught the habit. I rue all for this, but I can take it. Reading and writing will last long enough to cover my stay here below. Indeed, I have resolved to make the crisis, as I see it such, my subject. But I also look toward the future as a father. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and cannot but think of the ways in which her life will be different than mine. And when, in my darker moods, I contemplate the forces that will determine so much of her experience, her subjective outlook, I feel a sharp sense of regret. Then it seems to me that unless her mother and I are able to equip her with extraordinary doggedness and with a strong appetite for what is unique and vital, she will be swept up in the tide of the homogeneous. If she goes to a school where reading is not prized, if she follows the non-reading horde of her peers, where will she find the incentive, the desire to read on her own? And if she does not read on her own, where will she find the nutrients she needs in order to evolve an independent identity? We do what we can, and we try to do it in a non-coercive way. We promote the pleasures of book by example, by forever reading, and we try to make the encounter enjoyable. We buy books, borrow them from the library, and read to her regularly, but we also try to avoid any association of the medicinal, that books are good for her and that reading is a duty. So far, it seems to be working. She is eager. She recognizes that books are a place away from routine, a place associated with dreams and fantasies. On the other side, then, is the reading encounter, the private resource. On the other is the culture at large, and the highly seductive glitter of mass-produced entertainment. We are not so foolish as to prohibit it, but I sometimes wonder if we are being as wise as we might be in not curtailing it more. We have entered the world of Mr. Beast, and I am seized by the fear that there might be no way out. This past season, it was Mr. Beast. I don't just mean that we saw the video in our screen once or twice, which would have been the beginning and end of it when I was a child. We saw the video 3, 4, 5 times. We bought merch illustrated with stills and memes from the video, and we consumed that and looked through it 100 times. This media was purchased and played until the emulsion of the tape wore thin. Then, for Christmas, the video. Another 30 viewings, maybe more, and then the ice show with Mr. Beast theme, and the accessories, flashlight, cup, that can perch on the shelf alongside the plastic Mr. Beast toy given out at some fast food chain. Today, as never before in human history, the child lives in an entertainment environment among myriad spin-offs and products and commercial references, all of which reinforce the power, or should I say tyranny, of the video. I relent in the face of it. I was raised quite strictly, so I am, in my turn, lenient. I don't have the heart to deny my daughter what she covets and what all her friends have. I see the pleasure he takes in occupying this vivid universe, and I want her to have it. I tell myself that it will feed her imagination and that she will soon enough grow into more intricate and demanding fantasies. And then I despair. I conjure up a whole generation of children enslaved by a single carefully scripted, lushly animated narrative. Not even a narrative created by a single artist, but a team product, a studio job. And I wonder what tale or rhyme or private fantasy will be able to compete with the high-powered rendition from Hollywood's top talents. Is her imagination being awakened or stultified, locked forever in a kind of assembly line track? What is the effect of these dozens and dozens of repetitions? What are the overt and subliminal messages she is taking in? What is she learning about man, woman, love, honor, and all the rest? Is she incorporating into her deepest subjective structure a set of cliché? Will she and her millions of peers that usually consistency that comprises our future and that is underwhelming, underwriting the global growth of the Disney empire? With all of these kids march forward into adulthood as Disney automations with cookie-cut responses to the world they encounter. A human being, a child, needs to know the range of pleasures. There is a room for skibidi toilets, Mr. Beast, Beauty and the Beast à la Disney, but only when the field includes the best that has been imagined and written through the ages. I believe, help mine unbelief. I have been accused of being alarmist and conservative and prey to excessive nostalgia, and I accuse myself of cowardly pessimism. Why can't I embrace the necessity of historical progress? I have my reasons. First, I believe that what distinguishes us as a species is not our technological progress, but rather our extraordinary ability to confer meaning on our experience and to search for clues about our purpose from the world around us. Second, I believe too that meaning of this kind, call it existential meaning, has from its beginning been the product of our great distinguishing aptitude, the ability to communicate symbolically through language. Indeed, language is the soil, the seedbed of meaning, and the works of language, our literatures, have been the repository of our collective speculation. 3. Literature holds meaning not as a context that can be abstracted and summarized, but as experience. It is participatory arena. Through the process of reading, we slip out of our customary time orientation marked by distractedness and superficiality into the realm of duration. Only in the duration state is experience present as meaning. Only in this state are we prepared to consider our lives under what the philosophers used to call the aspect of eternity, to question our origins and destinations, and to conceive of ourselves as souls. I am not going to argue against the power and usefulness of electronic technologies, nor am I going to suggest that we try to turn back or dismantle what we have wrought in the interests of an intensified relation to meaning. But I would urge that we not fall all ourselves in our haste to filter all of our experience through circuitries, through screens. We are in some danger of believing that the speed and wizardry of our gadgets have freed us from the sometimes arduous work of turning pages in silence. I keep a file at home entitled The Written Wars. There I save newspaper clippings and relevant notes I've jotted down. The title captures my sense of urgency, my sense that there is a battle going on. On bad days I think it's hopeless, but the forces pulling us away from print and from ourselves are too strong that it is inevitable that generation by generation all independence and idiosyncrasy and depth will be worn away, that we will move ever more surely in lockstep, turning ourselves into creatures of the hive, living some sort of diluted universal dream of perpetual present. When that fear threatens to lay me low, I try to remember to turn my head. There, pinned to my bulletin letters or runes on a cave wall, crude letters. There, pinned to my bulletin board, is a sheet of white paper covered with crayon marks. Crude letters, runes on a cave wall, M's and V's, H's and P's repeated over and over. My daughter's work. She came to it by herself. One afternoon she marched into my study with the page extended proudly. She wanted to know what she had written, how to answer. You wrote, or act the indecipherable adult and say, you just help your dad finish something he's been working on for weeks. I said neither. I complimented her work and let her help me pin it to the bulletin board. Chapter 2. The Paper Chase, an autobiographical fragment. It is easy enough in retrospect to see a book as a screen, as a shield, as an escape, but at the same time, it was just the magic, the startling and renewable discovery that a page covered with black markings could, with a slight mental exhaustion, be converted into an environment, an inward depth populated with characters, and animated by diverse excitements, a world inside the world, secret and concealable, a world that I could carry about as a private resonance, a daydream, even when I was not reading, a movable feast. I was a dreamer, and books were my tools for dreaming. I read the ones that were more or less suited to my age and did so devotedly. Books about Indian chiefs, explorers and dogs, biographies of inventors and athletes, the post-rate versions of London and Poe that came with Scholastic Book Club. I had the first real thrill of ownership in second or third grade when the teacher broke open the first shipment and handed each of us in the class the books we had ordered. Later it was the Hardy Boys, with their illustrated covers and creased blue spines, then James Bond, the slim little pokebooks reeking of sexual innuendo and high-class gadgetry. Not until I was in junior high did I begin to make contact with some of the so-called better books by Salinger, Wolf, Steinbeck and others. But even then, I had no idea of bettering myself. I was simply looking for novels with characters whose lives would absorb mine for a few hours. Reading this book in our day and age feels like an apocalypse happened. Because at the time that Sven writes about here, it's past. He written this in the 90s, and now we live in times of YouTube, TikTok, Netflix, Spotify, and over the last couple of years, those medias define how we see information, how we explore the world, what do we know, what do we see. There are small enclaves of resistance, local libraries, small bookstores, book talk, other things like that. They may be seen as a resistance to this overall trend, but it starts to go in a very different way. You can look at my channel and at the videos that I recorded on topics of technology, arts, books, writing, and see what happens actually now. What happens with modern technology? What seems to be a current trend of this year and probably next year's. I'm now also releasing a video, maybe it will be on the channel by the time you see this, about what will happen after AI. What will be the next big paradigm shift? What will be the next big thing after the AI? And I have my version about that after this decade of personal computers, decade of CD drives and visual operating system, decade of internet, decade of social media, mobile devices, and decade of AI. If you're interested to see my guess and my explanations to them, please see that video. I also link it here. Also, I placed a link to a meeting with me where we can talk with you to discuss various things that are interesting to you as well, and to get to know each other better, and maybe to see what of the things that I do, what of that maybe can help you on your way, on your journey, and maybe we can exchange experience or knowledge, and you see another beautiful way to communicate. So I would love to talk to you. Please click the link that you see in the description. What attitude do you share towards reading, towards technologies, towards digital books, towards video and film, YouTube, TikTok? I would like to see any thoughts of yours and to discuss them because I replied to any comment. I also wanted to mention that those topics of books, reading, language, culture, film, TikTok are all connected to my life personally. I've been doing a lot of work in all of this. I have a video production here, so since my teen years, for 10 years, I've been working with films, documentary films, advertisements, art films and experimental films, but also short format, TikTok, YouTube podcasts, etc. And I know this topic of how we changed information, how information is changed, maybe even too well. On the other hand, for the last 5 years, I'm doing a lot of art that is just based on writing and rewriting and exploring a new way to write, a new way to see poetry, a new way to see text. I call it version forms. So what you see here is an entire poem. Here is a poem of Allen Ginsberg that is called Supermarket in California. Maybe this profile can remind you someone. So it's a whole poem written in a visual form. I have quite many of those, and I'm opening a solo exhibition this November. So I'm now preparing it. And a lot of things were happening with this in this year because I love to create it in the city, in public places. And for me, making version forms is always a social act. It's something that I can start a conversation on. And I've had countless conversations with those who are passing by, those who became interested in what I do, started to ask me, and we talk about culture, about reading, about poetry, about writing, handwriting, different creative techniques, about creative projects, about life overall, about cities, and about many other things. So for me, art and writing and literature and poems have truly became a social thing that I inspire from, that I get many friends and acquaintances from, and that helps me to strive in this world. Art, poetry, literature is not just a thing that can calm you down, but a thing that can give you a much wider context than what you can see in media, much wider than what you can see in social media, in short format, in long format, because this is a base of our civilization. That is how humans explored the world around them for thousands of years, with writing, especially handwriting, and with reading. So those are two essential components of life. I believe them to be very useful, and not just in the sense of sitting at home and reading or writing, but in a social sense. It can be very, very practical, and I believe that the best art is practical. If you like this idea, you can also support me. I would love if you supported me with, if you want to get a version form for you, with a poem that you love, or with one of the poems that I made a version form to now. You can contact me as well. There is a link in the description. And I would love to know what you think about this as well. I would love to know any thoughts and ideas that you have. So thank you that you watched till the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.